this world can satisfy. 'Cause Jesus, you're the cup that won't run dry.
Your presence is heaven to me. Your presence is heaven to me. Your presence is heaven to me. Your presence is heaven to me.
Treasure of my heart and of my soul. In my weakness you are merciful. Redeemer of my past and present wrongs. Beholder of my future days to come. Your presence is
Heaven to me. Your presence is heaven to me. Your presence is heaven to me. Your presence is heaven to me.
So we're singing,
Oh Jesus, oh Jesus, your presence is heaven to me. Oh Jesus, oh Jesus, your presence is heaven to me. Your presence is heaven to me. Your presence is heaven to me.
so all my days on earth will I await for that moment when I see you face to face. See, nothing in this world can satisfy. 'Cause Jesus, you're the cup that won't run dry. Oh, Jesus, you're the cup that won't run dry.
Your presence is heaven to me. Your you, Lord, for your mercy never fails me. All of my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. And all my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire in darkest night. You are close like no other. I've known you as a father, known you as a friend, and I have lived in the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire in darkest night. You are close like no other. I've known you as a father. I've known you as a friend, and I have lived in the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I'm surrendered now. Give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. faithful. All my life he has been he's been so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. I will sing of the goodness of God. I will sing of the goodness of God.
I'm going to read two verses of scripture tonight. Proverbs 18 and 20. If you see me look down and squint, it's because I forgot my iPad, so I'm using my phone. So it's not quite as big. A man's belly shall be satisfied with the fruit of his mouth, and with the increase of his lips shall he be filled. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. You may be seated. Tonight, for just a little bit, I'd like to talk just a little lesson about our tongues and the things that we say. The Bible has a lot to say about our tongues and how we use them. Proverbs written by King Solomon, probably the wisest person to ever walk this earth, talked about the tongue, our lips, and our mouth over 150 times in the book of Proverbs alone. The use of our tongue and what we say is one of the main focuses of the book of Proverbs. God not knew only the power of the tongue, but the propensity to use it for the wrong thing or in the wrong way. One of the reasons we need to guide it so much is that we use it a lot. Depending on what kind of study you read, you can get different answers about how much people talk. But each time you read it, you'll realize we speak a lot. I found that one of the studies found that the average person speaks over 11 million words a year. And so if you did it over about 65 years, you'll speak almost 750 million words, or 715 million words in your life. And a lot of those words have impact and meaning. So we need to guard what we say. That is a lot of things that we'll say in our life. And some of it's meaningless, some of it's trivial, but a lot of it has meaning and has power and has effect. And so we need to guard what we say. Matthew 12:36 and 37 says, "But I say unto you, that every idle word that men shall speak, they shall give an account thereof in the day of judgment. For by thy words thou shalt be justified, and by thy words thou shalt be condemned." That is a very sobering thing to read, because we have all said lots of things that we should not have said, and we probably don't want to give an account for. Right? We have all said it, no matter. You realize very young, if you're a parent, as soon as they learn to talk, there's probably some things that they don't really understand, but by the time they're 3 or 4, they're saying things that if they had to give an account for them, they wouldn't want to. So from a very young age, we learn how to use our words to get what we want, to manipulate, or to hurt people. Every word that comes out of our mouth, God hears and takes account of. Even if the words were not that powerful, with the vast amount that we say, we should guard them closely, but they are powerful. So, what are some of the wrong ways that we can use our tongue? Flattery. Proverbs 20 and 17 says, "Bread gained by deceit is sweet to a man, but afterward his mouth will be full of gravel." We all like to hear nice things about ourselves. But so often as when we'll look at things, it comes down to the heart or to the motives of what we say. And so we can say things that we are saying nice, or we can be saying that we're being kind or truthful, but if our motives is to get something or to manipulate, to, butter someone up with flattery so we get our way, then it's not what God wants us to do. Proverbs 26:28 says, a lying tongue hates its victims, and a flattering mouth works ruin. And Proverbs 28:23, whoever rebukes a man will afterward find more favor than one who flatters with his tongue. We need to guard what we say and how we use our mouth to get what we want. It's one of the, things that kids learn very quickly. I find, when they're young, they learn what to say to get what they want from the person they're talking to. They learn what they need to do, or they learn the actions that they need to do. If your child wants something, they're very much, they'll come and butter you up, or they'll come and give you a hug, or come and give you a kiss, because they learn the power of what they do. And it's something that they learn very quickly, and it's something that if we don't guard, that we will continue on and continue to do as we get older. If there's things that we want, we know what we can say to certain people. I remember there's a teacher that we had in high school, and we realized that on his tests, that if we just repeated what he said to us, whether it was perfect for the question or not, but if it was something that he had said, he'd give us great marks. And so everybody would just write down a bunch of things that he had said about the subject, and then we would just write them down on the test because he knew that he'd said them, and that's what he cared the most, that we had listened to what he said. It didn't even matter as much that it applied to the direct question. As long as it was in the ballpark, you would get a good grade. And so, because he won, I don't know why, he wasn't the most dedicated teacher in the world, as you can tell, but, he wanted to know that we had listened or something like that. So we figured out what to say or what to write to get what we wanted, right? And that's what we can do in life. The second thing that can be, and if I went through all the things wrong that we can do with our mouths, we'd be here all night. But we can quarrel. Proverbs 18:6 says, a fool's lips walk into a fight, and his mouth invites a beating. I forget which translation I have. I just liked how it says, and his mouth invites a beating. We have all seen that happen where people, how they say it, their mouth writes checks that they can't cash. Right? We've all been in that, where we get in places where we run our mouths, or we say things we say that either we can do or that we can't do, but we get ourselves in situations by quarreling with people or fighting with people or saying things that we shouldn't. Proverbs 29:11 says, a fool gives full vent to his spirit, but a wise man quietly holds it back. We quarrel with our words. We hurt with our words. We fight with our words because we know the effect that they have. If they didn't have effect, we wouldn't fight with them. If they didn't hurt, if they couldn't poke, if they couldn't prod, we would find some other way to get at people. But we know that our words have power, and so that we can use them to hurt or to move. And so that we need to guard how we say things, because we shouldn't be using our words to hurt people. We shouldn't be using our words to fight with people. That's not what we should be doing. But too often it's a place that we find ourselves in. Gossip. Proverbs 10:18 says, the one who conceals hatred has lying lips, and who utters slanders is a fool. And then Proverbs 16:28 says, a dishonest man spreads strife, and a whisper separates close friends. We've all been around, seen situations, and probably been in the midst of certain situations where one person says something and it gets passed on, and it usually gets way worse than what it started as. I remember one time being at campus ministry at Fleming, and Jerry was teaching a lesson of something along the lines of guarding what you say, and he did the broken telephone game or whatever, right? And by the time it got to the end, it was absolutely nothing like it was at the start, right? Because by the time it got passed down, the story had changed so much. And that's what happens when we start sharing things that we didn't see, we didn't hear, but we heard from someone else, and it makes a good story, so we spread it. And then it makes a good story, so they spread it. But it's in our human nature that we sensationalize it a little bit more than they did. And then they'll sensationalize it a little bit more than you did. So by the time it gets 2 or 3 people down the road, it's a whole lot worse than what it started as, when it's something that we shouldn't even be talking about in the first place. Proverbs 17:9 says, whoever covers an offense seeks love, but he who repeats a matter separates close friends. Once again, it separates. When we use our words improperly, it'll separate us from the people that we're close to. I've seen friendships and relationships destroyed by things that have been said carelessly or in the wrong spirit or in the wrong time. I've used this example before, but I had a friend at Bible school who is our friend to this day, but there was a time when he, won't go into the whole story, but he started dating this girl and married her, and she wasn't a very nice person. And he went and moved back with her family, and they didn't like, especially 2 of my friends, so they would call up to the school and try and get them in trouble, saying that they've been saying certain things, and then separate them. And his dad even cornered my friend a couple times at a youth thing and tried to confront him and be rude to him. And my friend got caught up with it and said things. And then when that relationship failed, he wanted to be friends again. But it was very hard to get over the things that had been said about other people, because they had been friends for years before this girl was even in the picture. But things that had said had separated a relationship, and it took a long time to rebuild trust. And so the words that we can say, they can separate us from those that we're close to. And then last one, talking when we shouldn't be. Proverbs 10:19 says, when words are many, transgression is not lacking, but whoever restrains his lips is prudent. When words are many, transgression is not lacking. It's a very interesting way to put things, but it's true. When there's too much talking going on, a lot of times it can lead to not good things. And then Proverbs 13:3 says, whoever guards his mouth preserves his life. He who opens wide his lips comes to ruin. The wisest man that ever lived realized that, you know what? I have got to put a massive filter on what comes out of my mouth. I have got to put a massive, massive filter about what comes out of my mouth. He probably seen the destruction of what people had said when they came before him for him to settle matters. He had seen the destruction that what words have done. And so he's like, you know what? It's better to guard what you say and preserve your life. 10:19, back to like, when words are many, transgression is not lacking. I just, we don't think about it like that. We're just like, they're just words sometimes. And sometimes we just ramble or we just get talking. But sometimes when we say too much, it causes problems. We've all been in those situations where it's like, you know what, things are going good. We could have left it at that, but we just say a little bit more and it just goes off the cliff, right? You're having a discussion and you think you've got things settled, but you know what? You just have to say one more thing and it just opens it back up bigger than it was before. At work today, I had 2 brothers that were mad at each other about something, and I thought I got the situation calmed down, but the older one just had to keep going back and saying something, and I just kept bringing it back up, and he wasn't even saying mean things or whatever, but it just nothing needed to be said at that moment. But he just had to keep going back and saying one more thing, and it just kept the situation going on and on. So we need to put a filter on ourselves. Right? So those are some of the wrong ways. Some of the right ways we can use our tongues. Proverbs 10:31 says, the mouth of the righteous brings forth wisdom, but the perverse tongue shall be cut off. And then Proverbs 15:7 says, the lips of the wise spread knowledge, not so the hearts of fools. So things like wise counsel or the knowledge of good things, those are the things we want to spread. Those are the things that we want to say. We all need someone to speak wise words into our life. We all need someone to give us knowledge in some places. There are so many good things that we can use our words for, and that's what we need to choose them for. Rebuke or reproof. Proverbs 17:10 says, a rebuke goes deeper into a man of understanding than 100 blows into a fool. Or Proverbs 27:6 says, faithful are the wounds of a friend. Sometimes we need someone that will be honest with us. Actually, lots of times we need someone that will be honest with us about where we are and what we're at. But for someone in those words to have effect, that means we can't have been saying the wrong words last week. For someone to come into our life and be honest with us, there has to have been the relationship that, you know what, it hasn't gone anywhere else, or they haven't been saying anything else about me to someone else for those words to have an effect, right? If someone wants to come and be honest with you, but you know that they've been saying other things to someone else about you, you're not going to take heed to them very much, are you? And so if we want to use our words properly, that means we can't be using them improperly in other situations if we want to have them effect. We can use them to encourage. Proverbs 12:25 says, anxiety in a man's heart weighs him down, but a good word makes him glad. And Proverbs 15:4 says, a gentle tongue is a tree of life, but perverseness in it breaks the spirit. We can use our words to lift up. And that goes back to motives, because sometimes flattery and encouragement can sound a lot like the same thing. But if I'm encouraging you, I'm doing it for you to lift you up. If I'm trying to use flattery, I'm doing it to get something for me, right? And so we want to encourage people. That means, no, I'm not going to get anything out of it, but that person needs a little of encouragement today, so I'm going to go out of my way to encourage. I'm not going to get anything out of it, but I'm going to do what I need to do. Proverbs 15:23 says, to make an apt answer is a joy to a man, and a word in season, how good it is. We all need the encouragement or word in season to help us in life. And the last part why we need to really look at our tongues is our words reveal our heart condition. Matthew 15:18 and 19 says, but what comes out of the mouth proceeds from the heart, and this defiles a person. For out of the heart comes evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false witness, and slander. What we say reveals what's down here. And yes, sometimes you can say, you know what, I just slipped up and it was a mistake, the things I said, and those do happen. But if it keeps coming out of you, then there must be something inside that needs to change. Yes, sometimes we get mad, we may get cut off in traffic, we may get whatever, and a word that we shouldn't say comes out. But whenever someone makes us upset, if we start a fight with our words, or whenever someone does something we don't want, or anytime someone cuts us off, we want to curse them out or do something wrong, it reveals something in our hearts that needs to change. Oh, all good. Our words reveal our heart. And so we need to guard our heart. And so if we see that we're saying things that we shouldn't, is it because was it just a mistake? Or is there a root of something in us that is producing those words, that is producing those feelings? I remember reading something somewhere that went along the lines is that God hates wicked imaginations because they become wicked realities. And when we say bad things, It's because, they're inside. And so God worries about our heart because eventually what's in our heart comes out. And so if we're angry in our heart, if we're hurting in our heart, it's going to come out and hurt others. If we're angry in our heart, our anger is going to come out and hurt others. If, anything that's in our heart, we can only hide it for so long. If we don't deal with it, it's going to come out. And it's going to come out probably first in the things we say. Because most of these situations that come out in Matthew 15:19, we've said some words that led us along those paths to begin with. Whether it's, murder, adultery, immorality, theft, slander. We've said some words before we committed those actions that started in our hearts. And so we need to guard our hearts. And that, lastly, James 1:19, wherefore, my brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath. Swift to hear and slow to speak. Take some time to think through before you say it. Take some time to think about where it's coming from, what the motives are before you say some things. Because there's so many times in the moment that I know I've wanted to say some things, but when I've taken a second, I really didn't need to say that. When you take a second, you're like, I don't need to say that. Or I can go back and say it in a different way, in a different spirit, where maybe I would have been right about what I said, but I would have said it in the wrong way with a wrong motive. And so I can go back and say, you know what? This is how I should say it, and this is how it should be done. But it all comes with, I've got to put a filter on my mouth and have control over it. And I was thinking about this before service, because it seems like, control has been something that's been talked about recently over here. And I found it interesting that we as humans, we struggle to control the things that we should, and we struggle to give up control the things that we shouldn't have control with. Right? We struggle to control our tongues. We could struggle to put ourselves on the altar and give everything to God. We struggle to do all those things, but then when it comes to giving up control to the things we should, we struggle to give up control of our lives. We struggle to give up control of our finances or whatever it may be. And so we need to get what we control and what we don't control in the proper place. We do need to control our tongues. We do need to control our hearts, our minds, our imaginations. And if we do those things, the easiest way to do those things sometimes is to give up control to God, what we don't need to have control over. To put our lives on the altar and say, God, it's not my life anymore, it's yours. Because so often we get upset and we do things when the things that we try and control don't go the way we want them to. Right? The words that we come out and say are over things that we probably shouldn't have control over anyways, but it's not going the way we want, and so we want to maintain control, and when it's not going the way we want, we lash out. And so if we can put them in their proper place and say, you know what, God, this is what you told me to give up control over, and then this is what you told me that I need to control, I'm going to put them in their proper place. God will help you get control of it, but it's something that you have to do. I remember hearing someone, and I forget exactly how he put it, but people always come and say to God, take care of this or deal with this for me. And some of those things, God's like, no, you need to take care of it and deal with it for yourself. I will help you, but you have to get rid of it yourself. You have to take control over it. He's not just going to come in and say, you know what? Sometimes God does a miracle and just you don't struggle with things anymore. But lots of times God says, you know what? If you struggled with your words, you can come and give it to God, but if you don't take control over it every day, you're going to still struggle with it. Unfortunately. Because it's very easy in the moment tonight or on a Sunday night or a Sunday morning to say, you know what, God, I'm going to give you control, and I'm going to guard myself, or I'm going to guard my tongue. But tomorrow morning when your boss makes you mad, or your spouse makes you mad, or your kid makes you upset, that's when you need to say, you know what, God, I need to have control over the words that I say. If we could all stand. Our words reveal our heart. And so if we could close tonight, come to the front and pray and just say, you know what, God, I want to have a filter on my life. I want to have a filter on what I say so that I can be the witness that I need to be, and I can be the person that has a proper heart condition. If we could all come. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, I pray, God, tonight for these people, God, in this place, Lord, that you'll help us tonight put a guard on our hearts, put a guard on our lips, on our mouths, on the things that we say, God, so that we can be the people that you've called us to be, Jesus, so that we can do what you've called us to do. In your name.